Green Team Media.
It was cold down in Mexico. I went down to visit them in February to watch because I wanted to see the set of the ship, and they were going full guns by then. I remember so many things. One of the first things I remember getting the call from Jim when I was in Tokyo. I was promoting Twister. I even remember before that going in, I was doing a little bit of a victory lap and kind of going to all the studios and talking to all the studio bosses before Twister came out. It was going to be a big movie. I remember going in and having a meeting with Tom Rothman and Peter Chernin, the heads of Fox at the time. Titanic had not been officially green-lit. I mean, they were moving forward, but they were hesitant because they knew it was a big budget. And I remember saying to both these men, whatever you do not let this filmmaker walk out those gates. You had one of the great filmmakers of his generation, if not the greatest, taking on what's arguably one of the greatest stories of all time. And knowing Jim's incredible background in underwater from doing The Abyss and everything else, and just his own studies of the deep, and I knew it was going to be remarkable. He had been talking about it for a long, long time. And I had a luncheon with him when he was just starting to do the basic scenario, what he calls a scriptment, which is kind of amazing document. It's almost like a novella that he writes. Then I get the call in Tokyo. He wants to meet me for a part, and then we met at Lightstorm, and he told me what the part was, and I said I'm in. And he said I want to use these bookends. Really, it's really for the beginning of the movie. Because it was one of those things, oh, they're making the movie The Titanic, oh, what happens? The ship sinks. People can be very facetious and cynical, and because of the money and everything. But it was like, and Jim was like, yeah, the ship sinks. But do you know how it sank? I mean, this is a beautiful bride who was killed on her honeymoon, and she died a violent death, to the point where he shows a reenactment, a computer reenactment that we show, that Louis Abernathy shows Gloria Stewart as Old Rose. And she says something to the effect of, well, I can tell you, thank you for that forensic reconstruction, but I can tell you the experience was somewhat different. And not only, he's going to show the audience right up front, yeah, this is how it all happened. And then you're waiting for this to happen, and you will get to watch it. And it was so interesting to just take it right back at him that way. That's Jim Cameron. And I knew that we were the gantry on the Saturn V rocket. I was glad to be a part of it. And, when Jim Cameron calls you, it's like the bat phone ringing. Yes, Commissioner Gordon. But I've had a very unique relationship with this man. I consider him, a close confidant and the most loyal friend I've ever had in Hollywood. We met in 1980. Even then, he had visions of things he wanted to do. He was telling about he was writing The Terminator at the time, even though he was an art director for Roger Corman. I was hired on his night crew. I was kind of playing Jim. We started shooting the inside of the Mir sub in a wharf warehouse right next to where the Keldysh was docked in Halifax. It was actually Dartmouth, right across the bay. And Jim had been down there in the Mir sub photographing the wreck in '95, which some of the images are in the movie. And so it was kind of like, is this how you do it, Jim? And I'd had a similar experience a couple years before shooting Apollo 13, which is very similar in a way. The command module's a three-man vehicle, just like the Mir sub, a ship. And I remember Jim Lovell, there as we were shooting some of it, and Tom Hanks say, because he was playing Jim, he turns and says, Jim, is this how you did it? He goes, well, something like that, Tom. And so it was a unique experience.